what is your argument then?
You say, I'm not a historian, but I'm going to spend my time talking about history. I'm not a journalist, but I'm going to spend my time talking about this thing. I'm not an expert on this, but I'm going to spend my time talking about this thing. It's a weird move, yeah?
No.
You don't think?
No, I'm a free American. I can talk about what I like to.
It would all be different.
Yeah, or if
and
Israel just hadn't occupied them for 60 years, it would all be different too.
They
I mean,
weren't
it's always on them. The World
to
Bank said in 1996 for the 1
now
year
the
of the decade.
libertarians are quoting the World Bank. I love it.
It doesn't mean anything. This is a non-argument. Yes, I'm saying the World Bank did their own analysis of this, and they said that
Why
it was a 40%
of your own analysis.
Hold on. You got to stop interrupting and let him finish the sentence.
The world
actually backfires on you. This is one of the things. Many reaction videos I've seen to this haven't touched on, so I've caught on this panel slightly. Moron, Douglas Murray, you're not an expert on Islam. You have been perpetuating lies against Islam over and over again. You're not an expert. So doesn't this backfire on you, you clown? 8 months ago, I downloaded Audible and I was going through the books there and they only had the Seerah. And I was like, why isn't anyone doing an Islamic version of Audible? And finally, True Ilm has come up with an app, brothers and sisters, where it's an Islamic version going through what? Aqidah, Quran, Tafsir, scholarly gems, Dawah, women, Hadith, Seerah and history, fiqh and kids. And check this out. Check how this sounds, brothers and sisters.
Him that a man would set out from Yemen or Muray.
We have got the Muslim Audible, brothers and sisters, finally, alhamdulillah, to seek True Ilm. They've only got a limited amount of space for the beta mode. Brothers and sisters, download it now and benefit from it, because let me tell you something, it is going to change the knowledge that I seek throughout my life, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters and dear friends. Hope you guys are well, inshallah. So we're going to be reacting to, inshallah, Joe Rogan and Dave Smith absolutely humiliating Douglas Murray. But there are two key points where Douglas Murray actually shot himself in the foot without actually realizing it. And it was absolutely flipping hilarious to me. So let's start off, inshallah, with the first clip, inshallah, and see how he gets slapped around intellectually.
But if you throw a lot of shit out there, there's some point at which I'm just raising questions is not a valid thing. Mm-hmm. You're not raising questions. You're not asking questions. You're telling people something.
Do you think Daryl's doing that?
I think there's a whole bunch of guys doing that. I think Dave is doing that, very obviously. Dave's a comedian, but he's now mainly talking about Israel.
No, I don't know if I'm mainly talking about Israel.
That's all I see you on the internet doing.
Yeah, but that's you.
That might be what you've seen.
It's just you consuming clips.
But that is also your shtick now, isn't it?
Well, what do you mean by that's my shtick?
Well, you're not a geopolitics guy in general, are you?
I don't even know exactly what you're asking.
I'm saying you've decided, being a comedian, you've decided now to become somebody who talks about Israel.
I think you're incorrect. I don't think it's a decision. I just think you have long-form conversations, multiple of them. It's a huge event that's in the news, so it comes up. I don't think it's a thing. I think if you're on the outside, you'd say, oh, look, they're trying to get attention by talking about this very polarizing issue publicly.
But you do get attention from that. If you'd spent the last year speaking about Myanmar, you would not be on my lips.
Yeah, but he does talk about Yemen constantly. He talks about a lot of things that aren't in the news.
Well, I tend to talk about the conflicts that my government is directly involved in, which I think is reasonable to me. But I don't quite get, like, what's all the appeal to authority stuff? I mean, you have to be an expert? Or
no, I think authority matters. I think authority matters, and I think that if you just throw a lot of shit out there and then say, I'm not interested in the alternative views on this, and particularly when it's a counter-narrative that is wildly off. And when you get people, look, I just feel, we should get it out straight away, I feel you've opened the door to quite a lot of people who've now got a big platform who have been throwing out counter-historical stuff of a very dangerous kind.
So in a nutshell, guys, he's having a go at Joe Rogan. You have opened the door to people like Dave Smith and his likes to talk. Expert or not? Does one need to be an expert to be talking about there's a genocide, innocent men, women, children being killed, they are indiscriminate, they're targeting them, sniper bullets hitting children's heads, private parts? What expert do you need to be? Does one need to be an expert in what? In what? He's having a go at Joe Rogan for putting him in there. And there's a counter narrative. What's the counter narrative? That the government that you support, by the way, you're English. I don't even know what connections you have. That they are massacring these people. Yes, and that's the counter narrative. You want us to be like, okay, yes, it's okay to kill men, women, and children.
Or dynamics to all of this is that we have, at least since 9/11, been in a state of perpetual war. All of these wars have been disasters. There have been so many lies involved in selling all of them. The whole Iraq war, the whole war in Afghanistan, just lying the whole way through. It's just like lie after lie after lie with disastrous wars. And so this does create a fertile ground for people to say, I wonder if they were lying about all these wars.
Sure,
again, I'm not really trying to argue about World War II. I'm not argue about these wars today.
I think the interesting question is whether you're busy watering it.
Well, should you not talk about mistakes that were made overall?
Absolutely.
Okay, you should.
Absolutely. Right. All for going back and looking at mistakes.
So what is your argument then?
You say, I'm not a historian, but I'm going to spend my time talking about history. I'm not a journalist, but I'm going to spend my time talking about this thing. I'm not an expert on this, but I'm going to spend my time talking about this thing. It's a weird move, yeah?
No.
You don't think?
No, I'm a free American. I can talk about what I like to.
So what is the point here? I've noticed you can. But we all can. The point is, what are you pushing? What are you watering?
What am I pushing?
Yes.
Liberty, free markets, peace, prosperity, not getting in another stupid catastrophic war, which we're on the precipice of right now.
And you keep referring to we being in war.
Okay, in a nutshell, who's been pushing these wars? Benjamin Netanyahu, this scum dirtbag, Satan. He is the one that has been pushing this narrative and telling them to go to war with this person and that person. Why? Not for America's interest, for the United States of Israel's interest. And that's why Americans are fed up and they're waking up. It's the beginning of the end of Israel. And he says, for example, what are you, it's fertile ground, and what are you watering? In a nutshell, your objective news, because this is what they say now, objective news means now you're pro-Hamas. Pro-Hamas. They're even going after Miss Rachel for saying don't dehumanize Palestinian children. They've made a woman cry. And then a social experiment in central London about this, hunting Hamas member down. You can watch that. But let's carry on.
Impose tariffs on China. Would you point out that I didn't, and it was the Trump administration?
I'm saying you take it obviously very personally, and that's your right to do so, of course. I'm just trying to make sure we're accurate here.
What do you think I'm taking personally?
Just that, the American wars.
Sure, yeah. I think they've killed hundreds of thousands of people and cost my country $8 trillion and degraded my country very much.
And there's a very good argument to make on that. I'm still slightly bemused about this move from I'm an expert on this and I have views to I'm a comedian.
I've never claimed to be an expert on anything.
This is the problem, Joe. I mean, if somebody says
you have to claim to be an expert on something to have an opinion on something.
You don't have to be. You don't have to be. But
so
this is like
issue?
I'm not a historian, but I'm pumping out history.
But wait a minute,
I'm not an expert, but I'm talking all the time about this.
But you're not
thing.
even talking about specifically on what he just said.
No, I'm saying this is my point about this. You say I'm not an expert.
So what's the solution? To not talk about it?
No, it's to have more experts around.
Well, the expert class hasn't done a great job.
I know.
Man. This is follow the science.
Yeah, but you know what? I agree with that. I just said to you, I agree with that.
I know.
But
so
one
Douglas,
of the problems
during
is,
all of COVID, I will put my track record against any of the expert class on COVID. I'm glad to do that. So should I have just shut up? Should I have shut up by opposing lockdowns and opposing vaccine mandates and talking about the lab
argument
theory?
At the time. You realize
that's the entire argument that you're making. Let the experts handle this.
No.
You're not an expert. I was just a comedian.
Wildly
Again, as you can see clearly, so he's basically saying nobody in any way, look, God Almighty has given us some kind of morality to see for bad and good. Okay, of course you need experts in specific fields, but this actually backfires on you. This is one of the things, many reaction videos I've seen to this, haven't touched on this, or caught on this panel slightly, is that he's saying you have to be an expert. Well, moron, Douglas Murray, you're not an expert on Islam. You have been perpetuating lies against Islam over and over again. You're not an expert. So doesn't this backfire on you, you clown? You do not know nothing about Islam. You've been lying, misconstruing, taking things out of context, and you are the reason why innocent men, women, and children, Muslims have been attacked all over the world, or even some of them killed because of your rhetoric. This man is saying America first. He's saying why United States of Israel? It should be United States of America. He's putting his country first. Let's carry on, and let's see how he shoots himself in the foot again.
Do you think there's a blockade of any kind?
So I think they disengaged in order to kill the peace process. I think they put the full blockade around the country for the reason that they've always kind of done it there, that, they don't want too much stuff getting in. They want to keep them, as they put it, on a diet, and they don't want rockets to fly into Israel.
If that desire to live in peace beside your neighbors had superseded the desire to stockpile rockets, it would all be different.
Yeah, or if Israel just hadn't occupied them for 60 years, it would all be different too.
They weren't
it was always on them. The World
it.
Bank said in 1996 for the 1
Now
year
the
of the blockade.
libertarians are quoting the World Bank. I love it.
This doesn't mean anything. This is a non-argument. Yes, I'm saying the World Bank did their own analysis of this, and they said that
Why
it was a
don't you
40%
do your
of
own analysis?
Hold on. You got to stop interrupting and let him finish the sentence.
The World Bank said that 40% drop in the GDP of 1 year due to the blockade, and there's been a blockade from 2007 on. So are you saying that this hasn't had an economic effect? Is that the argument?
No, of course it'll have an economic effect.
So you're saying you have to be on the ground and do an audit of the blockade in order to be able to
I
comment
think
on
you
it?
should at least know what it is, what the territory is, what the situation is in the region. Yes, absolutely.
And the only way to do that is to be there in person.
I think that's the best way.
Either take on the arguments or don't, but I don't think
I said your argument's incorrect.
Oh, okay, fine. Well, then present a counter argument to it. But to just tell me I'm not allowed to talk about something.
I'm not saying you're not allowed to
okay,
talk
fine. Well,
about
you're not
it.
an expert, so you shouldn't talk about it. You haven't been there. Yeah, I know. But you keep playing this game where it's like the whole opening to this podcast was like the non-experts talking about this is such a problem. Now you're saying I haven't been there, I can't talk about it. Is there a blockade there that's causing economic devastation or not? According to the World Bank, there is.
I do believe that one of the things you should do if you're talking about something is to see it.
Yeah, you've established
that.
Is there a blockade?
The reason why trucks get searched is not because the Israelis want to search through grain or flour. It's because they wanted to stop the trucks containing the arms and
to understand it properly. Whenever you go into the Muslims and who've been massacred, yes, we talk about they hate the West. They don't hate the West. They do not hate the West. They don't care about you and your freedoms and your degeneracy. You can keep it to yourself, mate. Yes, whenever you go to these regions, I spoke to Muslims and said, what's your problem with the West? And they'll come and say, you are massacring us. You're coming to our lands and stealing our resources. And very interestingly, when he shoots them in the foot, and Dave Smith pulled him up on this, which is that he's like, well, if you come and he's like, oh, if you, if they stop sending rockets, Hamas, then we will not be doing this. Hold on a second. And Dave Smith said, well, if you haven't been occupying them for that many years, they wouldn't be doing what they do it. And this is the next reaction I'm going to show you is where Douglas Murray shoots himself in the foot by actually making an argument for the Palestinians. Watch this for yourself, guys. I don't know how people miss this out. Watch this carefully.
Views about iron ore production in the Bavarian forest and this sort of thing. And I remember everyone was all over the place, and the moderator turned to the historian Andrew Roberts and said, Andrew Roberts, why did World War II begin? And he said, World War II began because Hitler invaded Poland. And those moments come along quite often at the moment, which is, yes, there's an awful lot of very interesting things to look into. There's a lot of very interesting things going on which we should all be able to talk about and do talk about. But sometimes you have to remember the origin causes of things as well, and you have to stick to keeping that in mind.
Yeah, well,
I think that a lot of people are pretty bad at the moment of keeping that in mind. Like you can concede Ukrainian corruption, you can concede all sorts of things, and still not lose sight of the thing of if Russia rolls tanks into neighboring countries.
Yeah,
it can't be allowed.
Oh well, listen. Okay, so on that, I think we have an area of agreement. And
did you hear that? Why did World War II began? Yes, he's talking about somebody who's bigging up and saying, the guy said, oh, put all of those little leaves to the side. Let's go to the root of the problem. Why did World War II start? Because Hitler went into Poland. Why did the war start with Russia? Because Russia brought its tanks to its neighboring countries. Okay, so you're trying to make a point based on the root of the problem is what? That if they did not do that, if Hitler didn't go to Poland, World War II would have started. Fair point. If Russia didn't bring this tanks, which I don't know if it's true or not, the neighboring countries, the war with Ukraine wouldn't start. You scumbag. And if Zionists did not go and steal the lands from the Palestinians, we would not be here. You moron. Do you understand? You just shot yourself a shotgun on your head. Boom, intellectual. Have you realized? Do you see when they perpetually lie, they don't even realize they even make counter arguments against themselves. You cannot make this up. You've just made an argument for the Palestinians. And that is the point of Dave Smith and Joe Rogan. Salute to you, Joe Rogan.
It's kind of hard to lecture a group of people who are going through so much. The level of human suffering that's being inflicted on the people of Gaza right now cannot be overstated. And so, to lecture them about how you're supposed to handle that exactly. But I will say, man, I think there's kind of this selective empathy that you have here. Talking about October 7th. But at the same time, we're not having this conversation on October 9th. Or in November or December of 2023. We're having it in 2025, where the tragedy that's been inflicted on Gaza is orders of magnitudes greater than October 7th. There are just every day people are inundated with images of just dead women and children. This is one of the most brutal wars. And by several metrics that really, personally matter to me, like the number of dead kids, I think that's a pretty good one. It's more children have died than in any recent war. I mean, this is it does, I do think there's almost a fundamental framing bias. It seems to me that there's almost an implicit difference in the value that you place on Israeli life versus the value that we place on Palestinians' life. And to even we've gone this far into the conversation and haven't even talked about the fact that Israel has, if you want to argue, I haven't been there, stuff does get through the blockade, okay, fine. This is a captive people, that Israel has dominated since at least 1967. Many of them are there because of the creation of the state of Israel, who used to live in what is now called Israel. And they are just, the amount of human suffering that's being inflicted on them, when Hamas in many ways was forced on these people. In fact, we saw protests against Hamas just recently. So, I don't know, that to me seems to be the greatest human tragedy, and I think much more so than you can characterize it as people being pro-Hamas or people being anti-Semitic, but I actually think that the mass movement around the world of people who oppose this war has been that people feel really awful about all these babies.
Yeah, clearly. In that, I wish there was a reaction video to Douglas Murray's face. Not remorse, no guilt. Nothing. He's talking about, Dave Smith's talking about massacring men, women, and children being massacred. The guy does not even flinch. He doesn't even condemn. He's basically saying the price is worth it. He's the reason why he has a problem with Joe Rogan and Dave Smith is because he's saying the price is worth it. Killing these innocent babies, children, women that he's talking about. He talks about women's rights, etc. with the hijab. Yeah? Okay, you scumbag, you double-standard hypocrite. He's basically saying the price is worth it. They should be killed because of the greater picture. That is the point here. That is the point here. No remorse. What a vile person.
Or once, and he absolutely did not downplay any of the Nazi atrocities at all. And I think that if we're zooming out here a little bit, maybe this is kind of part of the disconnect. Broadly speaking, in American culture, the idea that it has not been driven into people enough that the Nazis were bad and that Adolf Hitler he is literally the modern devil. He is much more so than the actual devil. Adolf Hitler is what's viewed as the most evil thing, to the point that, just my entire life growing up, if there was a guy who sold soup on Seinfeld who was authoritarian, he's a soup Nazi. Right. Everyone was Hitler. The left called George Bush Hitler, and they called Obama Hitler, and they called Trump Hitler. Yes. Every single enemy that we've gone to war with always called Hitler. Saddam Hussein's the new Hitler. Muammar Gaddafi's the new Hitler. Putin's the new Hitler. It is so the idea that we haven't driven into people enough that Adolf Hitler was a really bad guy.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying just as the left likes to play with very dark, ugly stuff, and they've done it for decades. They have played down Chairman Mao's murder of the Chinese throughout his era in power. They played down Stalin. They still march, on occasions, with posters of Lenin. They've spent decades trying to do down evils that were done on their side.
And he's now having a go at some guy called Daryl, something, whatever, downplaying the anti-Semitism of Hitler or something like that. Yes, he's making that point. my friend, Hitler is the thing they would use. The card that they would use, Hitler and Holocaust, is to carry out these massacres. People have woken up. It's not working anymore. There are Jews, real Jews, who are coming, anti-Zionist Jews, who are coming and saying, you are not going to use this Holocaust card to do another Holocaust. It's not going to work. You're not going to do it. And fairly so. They're speaking out. They're not experts. And if there's anyone that could talk about this, I mean, it's those who have gone through the Holocaust. They're the grandchildren of those who went through the Holocaust. They are saying it's not going to work. And this guy is here talking about that. And then towards the end, he talks about those who have downplayed what Lenin done and Mao Zedong done, etc. You are downplaying what Israel is doing. Does this guy hear himself? I cannot, guys. Have you picked up on this? Please let me know. I'm when I pull my hair out, I haven't got any hair left, as you can see. Yeah, guys. He is saying they're downplaying that, and you are downplaying the atrocities of Israel. Last reaction video. Can't make this guy. This guy absolutely annihilated.
I get stuff on Twitter that I just do not want. I do not want a guy with 1,500 followers who's got some zany new view on something, who isn't an expert but is an expert, to be pushed at me. And effectively, what is happening with the Twitter algorithm is happening everywhere else as well. And we're all for the open marketplace of ideas. I want that. I thrive in it. But it is different once you get into the thing of, is something manipulating the algorithm behind? Is the algorithm being pushed on me? Why am I being given this? Why am I not being given that? Why am I being constantly pushed this view? And I think that the answer to
Lastly, very simple. He has issue with the algorithm and people who are not experts, and some guy with 1,000 followers is talking about this. You've been doing this for the past 10, 20 years, my friend, talking about Islam. You're not an expert. Yes, guys been pushing the algorithm, lying, manipulating, taking out of context, misconstruing about Islam. You're not an expert. You are not an expert. So why have you been talking about it? Why have you been talking about Islam in such a way where you have no idea? Have you come and sat with Muslims, spoke with Muslims, understood the Quran, spoke to the people in the region of, do they hate the West? They don't hate the West. They're like, leave us alone. Leave us alone. That is the thing. And I want to salute Joe Rogan. Hats off to you. Hats off to you. I know, sorry. But hats off to you, brothers and sisters. And Joe Rogan is waking up. The whole entire world is waking up. It is the beginning of the end of Zionism and Israel. And I hope we live to see it. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.